in this demo. So in this demo, essentially what we're going to do is show you what the environment looks like before your pointy-haired CTO comes in and tells you to go ahead and create this new solution. So we've got F5 devices, the big IQs. We've got an NSX environment stood up, the NSX manager, its controllers, and that edge services gateway. Horizon View is set up. We've got those servers, the connection servers, the composers. We've got both a remote client and a local client. And we've just got the corporate desktop pool that's created so far. We've also got our vSphere environment and our vRealize 6 environment set up. So those are up and functioning, ready to be used. And so if we take a look at it, this is, again, what the picture looks like in your well-oiled data center before the pointy-haired CTO comes in and tells you to add something to it. We go take a look at the next part of the demo. This is from our Big IQ Cloud product, and we're going to take a look at what we have available here. What we've got is the Big IQ Cloud connected to a VMware NSX environment and to vSphere. We've entered the credentials. We've entered what we call a pool license. That's the ability for an F5 device to have a set of F5 licenses and apply them. And here we've taken a look at the Horizon environment. We've got that corporate desktop pool. It's up and running and available for us. And taking a step back, we've also, on the Big IQ device, created a set of images that we'll deploy. Here we'll take a look at the NSX environment. We've got one NSX edge created, and right now we've got 4 networks. We've got the desktop network, that corporate internal desktop network, a secure network upon which we'll place the new desktop pool, the remote user's desktop pool. We've got an HA network and a server network. Here we'll take a look at the vRealize orchestrator, and we'll dive in and take a look at what the actual schema looks like that we're using. So this is the main schema that we'll be using, and it does 3 different things at this point. The first part is we need to tell VRO what we're connecting to. So vRealize orchestration needs to know what are the NSX edges that I need to query, where is the virtual switches, what are the VXLANs that are created already, and how big do we want to make this new desktop pool? We get to answer those questions up front. And how do we want to connect the F5 device and put it in front of that new Horizon desktop pool? So that's the first set of interactions that happen. And you can see here, this is what happens as you're going through. You're going to answer questions like this, configure NSX, configure the desktop pool. And we have what we call an IAP. And how many of you are familiar with what an F5 IAP out there? Anybody use those? I see some heads nodding, a couple, say about 1/3 of you know what those are. An IAP is a wizard-driven template. And they're generally on a big IP device, and it makes deploying a service on a big IP very simple. It's a wizard-driven deployment. You answer one question, and it will present you with other questions depending on how you answered the first one. Kind of like a create-your-own-mystery novel. But what we've done here in connecting it with VRO is we've taken those questions in kind of a static manner, and we've placed them in VRO so that we can answer those questions that need to be answered for a big IP IAP and presented those in vRealize Orchestrator. So in vRealize Orchestrator, we configure that. This is what an IAP looks like on a big IP device. This is for view. Any question that's got a blue bar beside it is one that needs to be answered. So in 9 questions in just a few minutes, that's what it takes to deploy on a big IP a service for Horizon View. In the past, it would take me hours to get that done. So here we are, we're going to see using this IAP method to create that service. And we've answered those questions so that we can create that service. And you'll see here in a second that the workflow is going to go through. One thing that's going to happen is by querying for the edges, now we're going to be able to have drop downs as we answer questions. So we've got this edit selection. We choose the management network. We choose the pools that we're going to use for external, internal, our HA network, and what port group we want to use for this new desktop pool, because we've created a new port group for that. Generally, what you would do is use this inventory browser to answer all of those questions. What we've done is simplified the process earlier and to make this demo move faster. But you go through this inventory browser and it exposes, these are all of the networks that are available on that vCenter. And we want to choose the appropriate one that we want to put this new desktop pool on. This is one that NSX just created. As it's going along, you notice it sleeps here. So, and it moves on and does some other processes. But what we've done is done the Julia Childs thing. So we've kind of paused here. We're going to put our turkey in the oven and take out one that's fully cooked, and we'll move on to the next step so you can see what happens there. So as we move on, what's happening in the background is the NSX through BigIQ and vCenter Orchestrator has started deploying a new set of BigIP devices. That new set of BigIP devices, we're going to see here in the BigIQ Cloud over there in the Devices tab, that they're going to show up and become available and known to BigIQ. As they become known, they get host names, they get IP addresses, and they get added to our managed pool of licenses, and they get connected to the proper networks. Again, that process took 7 to 10 minutes to deploy a couple large virtual machines, spin them up, get them connected, do the updates we needed to do, and run through that automation. So again, we've Julia Childs did here, and we're going to skip ahead to what happens next. So what happens next is now we take a look at, we're going to refresh, and we're going to see that the orchestration has created a remote engineering desktop pool. And that desktop pool has a couple of machines in it, and those are being provisioned right now, and they're taking their time to do that. And let's go take a look at the BigIP and what happened there. On the BigIP device, we've taken the IAP questions that we've answered, and they've created all of these objects. There are some 300 objects for a standard view implementation. And again, we answered 9 questions, and it created all of those objects and put them in the right hierarchy and tied them together so that my fat fingers didn't get in the way and didn't have to worry about that. We also, through that automation, we've created a simple firewall rule. You could expand on this if you wanted to, and we're going to allow that desktop pool to get access to our engineering servers, but to nothing else in the environment. One more time, we skip ahead. Things are happening in the background. We'll skip ahead into DA. We've got an environment that is working for you and up and functioning. So again, we take a look at our diagram. What are we going to see here? 2 different scenarios. We're going to show you a local client, what the internal users have been doing all along, that they've been able to connect through the BigIP, talk to their corporate desktop pool, and they can get access to any of the resources that they need within the company. We'll then take a second look at what it means for a remote user to connect to this environment, what that remote engineering user's experience is going to be. They're going to connect through the internet, and the BigIP is sitting in the DMZ at this point, and we've got an interface that's on the external network, and we've got an interface that is on the internal network, one of those internal networks, VXLANs that is connected to an edge services gateway. So it's sitting in the DMZ, and that BigIP is going to securely proxy that PC over IP traffic from that remote Horizon client into the remote desktop pool and allow them access to the engineering web server and block them from having access to everything else. So here we are. This is the internal user, what it is they're going to see, and the solution that they're used to using. Again, you'll notice that they're going to viewdemo.bd.f5.net or .com. That's our environment. And when they log in, they only see the corporate desktop pool. They get into their view desktop just like they normally would. This is going through an F5 device. We're proxying that. We're acting as the security server. Notice they can get access to the internet. I'm not sure they want that, but they can. They get access to the engineering server. And you'll notice that they get access to, here in just a second, they get access to the finance server. And the reason that we don't want the remote users to get access to the finance server is because there's sensitive data here, salary data. So let's take a look at what the remote client looks like and their experience. Very similar. They launch their Horizon client. They go to the very same URL, and they log in with their remote contractor credentials. They authenticate. they're only presented the remote engineering pool of servers. That desktop comes up, and they can get to the engineering server. And if they try to get to the finance server and or the internet, we'll see here in just a second that they're blocked. And going to the internet, and they are blocked.